Many years ago, there was an emperor so exceedingly fond of new clothes that he spent all his money on being well dressed. He cared nothing about reviewing his soldiers, going to the theatre, or going for a ride in his carriage, except to show off his new clothes. He had a coat for every hour of the day, and instead of saying as one might about any other ruler, "The king's in council," here, they always said, "The emperor's in his dressing room." In the great city where he lived, life was always gay. Every day many strangers came to town, and among them one day came two swindlers. They let it be known they were weavers, and they said they could weave the most magnificent fabrics imaginable. Not only were their colours and patterns uncommonly fine, but clothes made of this cloth had a wonderful way of becoming invisible to anyone who was unfit for his office, or was unusually stupid. Those would be just the clothes for me, thought the emperor. If I wore them, I would be able to discover which men in my empire are unfit for their posts, and I could tell the wise men from the fools. Yes, I certainly must get some of the stuff woven for me right away. He paid the two swindlers a large sum of money to start work at once. They set up two looms and pretended to weave, though there was nothing on the looms. All the finest silk and the purest old thread which they demanded went into their travelling bags, while they worked the empty looms far into the night. I'd like to know how those weavers are getting on with the cloth, the emperor thought, but he felt slightly uncomfortable when he remembered that those who were unfit for their position would not be able to see the fabric. It couldn't have been that he doubted himself, yet he thought he'd rather send someone else to see how things were going. The whole town knew about the cloth's peculiar power, and all were impatient to find out how stupid their neighbours were. "I'll send my honest old minister to the weavers," the emperor decided. "He'll be the best one to tell me how the material looks, for he's a sensible man, and no one does his duty better." So the honest old minister went to the room where the two swindlers sat working away at their empty looms. "Heaven help me," he thought, as his eyes flew wide open. "I can't see anything at all." But he did not say so. Both the swindlers begged him to be so kind as to come near to approve the excellent pattern, the beautiful colours. They pointed to the empty looms, and the poor old minister stared as hard as he dared. He couldn't see anything, because there was nothing to see. "Heaven have mercy," he thought. "Can it be that I'm a fool? I'd have never have guessed it, and not a soul must know. Am I unfit to be the minister? It would never do to let on that I can't see the cloth." "Don't hesitate to tell us what you think of it," said one of the weavers. "Oh, it's beautiful. It's enchanting." The old minister peered through his spectacles. "Such a pattern! What colours! I'll be sure to tell the emperor how delighted I am with it." "We're pleased to hear that," the swindlers said. They proceeded to name all the colours, and to explain the intricate pattern. The old minister paid the closest attention, so that he could tell it all to the emperor. And so he did. The swindlers at once asked for more money, more silk and gold thread, to get on with the weaving. But it all went into their pockets. Not a thread went into the looms, though they worked at their weaving as hard as ever. The emperor presently sent another trustworthy official to see how the work progressed, and how soon it would be ready. The same thing happened to him that had happened to the minister. He looked, and he looked, but as there was nothing to see in the looms, he couldn't see anything. "Isn't it a beautiful piece of goods?" the swindlers asked him, as they displayed and described their imaginary pattern. "I know I'm not stupid," the man thought, "so it must be that I'm unworthy of my good office. That's strange. I mustn't let anyone find out, though." So he praised the material he did not see. He declared he was delighted with the beautiful colours and the exquisite pattern. To the emperor he said, "It held me spellbound." All the town was talking of this splendid cloth, and the emperor wanted to see it for himself while it was still in the looms. Attended by a band of chosen men, among whom were his 2 old trusted officials, the ones who had been to the weavers, he set out to see the 2 swindlers. He found them weaving with might and main, but without a thread in their looms. "Magnificent!" said the 2 officials, already duped. "Just look, your majesty! What colours! What a design!" They pointed to the empty looms, each supposing that the others could see the stuff. "What's this?" thought the emperor. "I can't see anything. This is terrible. Am I a fool? Am I unfit to be the emperor? What a thing to happen to me of all people! Oh, it's very pretty," he said. "It has my highest approval." And he nodded approbation at the empty loom. Nothing could make him say that he couldn't see anything. His whole retinue stared and stared. One saw no more than another, but they all joined the emperor in exclaiming, "Oh, it's very pretty!" And they advised him to wear clothes made of this wonderful cloth, especially for the great procession he was soon to lead. "Magnificent! Excellent! Unsurpassed!" were bandied from mouth to mouth, and everyone did his best to seem well pleased. The emperor gave each of the swindlers a cross to wear in his buttonhole, and the title of Sir Weaver. Before the procession, the swindlers sat up all night and burned more than 6 candles to show how busy they were finishing the emperor's new clothes. They pretended to take the cloth off the loom. They made cuts in the air with huge scissors, and at last they said, "Now the emperor's new clothes are ready for him." Then the emperor himself came with his noblest noblemen, and the swindlers each raised an arm as if they were holding something. They said, "These are the trousers, here's the coat, and this is the mantle," naming each garment. "All of them are as light as a spider web. One must almost think he had nothing on, but that's what makes them so fine." "Exactly," all the noblemen agreed, though they could see nothing, for there was nothing to see. "If your imperial majesty will condescend to take your clothes off," said the swindlers, "we will help you on with your new ones here, in front of the long mirror." The emperor undressed, and the swindlers pretended to put his new clothes on him, one garment after another. They took him around the waist, and seemed to be fastening something. That was his train, as the emperor turned round and round before the looking-glass. "How well your majesty's new clothes look! Aren't they becoming?" he heard on all sides. "That pattern so perfect, those colours so suitable. It is a magnificent outfit." Then the Minister of Public Processions announced, "Your Majesty's canopy is waiting outside." "Well, I'm supposed to be ready," the Emperor said, and turned again for one last look in the mirror. "It is a remarkable fit, isn't it?" He seemed to regard his costume with the greatest interest. The noblemen who were to carry his train stooped low, and reached for the floor as if they were picking up his mantle. Then they pretended to lift and hold it high. They didn't dare admit they had nothing to hold. So off went the emperor in procession under his splendid canopy. Everyone in the streets and the windows said, "Oh, how fine are the emperor's new clothes! Don't they fit him to perfection? And see his long train!" Nobody would confess that he couldn't see anything, for that would prove him either unfit for his position or a fool. No costume the emperor had worn before was ever such a complete success. "But he hasn't got anything on," a little child said. "Did you ever hear such innocent prattle?" said his father. And one person whispered to another what the child had said. "He hasn't anything on. A child says he hasn't anything on." "But he hasn't got anything on," the whole town cried out at last. The emperor shivered, for he suspected they were right. But he thought, this procession has got to go on. So he walked more proudly than ever, as his noblemen held high the train that wasn't there at all. This has been The Emperor's New Clothes, written by the Danish author Hans Christian Andersen. And I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have enjoyed this, please do leave a like on the video. Do subscribe for more readings like this one. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss new content from me, maybe make sure that you don't miss the start of a premiere of a new chapter or story or the start of a live stream, then please do make sure you've got that notification bell switched on for my channel as well. And as always, I really do appreciate those comments. Please do leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of this story and of my reading of it, and what other stories, either by Hans Christian Andersen or by another favourite author of yours, that you would like to hear me read. And before I go, I thought it could be quite interesting just to read a few little sections from the Wikipedia of The Emperor's New Clothes. I've done this before with a couple of stories, and I think it's just nice, however familiar you are really with the story, to provide a little bit of context around it. So, The Emperor's New Clothes was first published alongside The Little Mermaid in Copenhagen on the 7th of April 1837, as the third and final instalment of Andersen's Fairy Tales Told for Children. The tale, under its original Danish name of Kejserens Nye Klæder, has been adapted to various media, and the story's title, the phrase, "The Emperor has no clothes," and variations thereof, have been adopted for use in numerous other works, and as an idiom. It is said that Andersen's tale is based on a 1335 story from the Libro de los Ejemplos, a medieval Spanish collection of 51 cautionary tales. Andersen did not know the Spanish original, but read the tale in a German translation. In the source tale, a king is hoodwinked by weavers who claim to make a suit of clothes invisible to any man not the son of his presumed father, whereas Andersen altered the source tale to direct the focus on courtly pride and intellectual vanity rather than adulterous paternity. And there is also an Indian version of the story, appearing in 1283 in a work which summarizes a now lost anthology of fables from 1052. And in the Indian story, a dishonest merchant swindles the king by offering to weave a supernatural garment that cannot be seen or touched by any person of illegitimate birth. When the king is supposedly wearing the garment, his whole court pretends to admire it. The king is then paraded about his city to show off the garment. When the common folk ask him if he has become a naked ascetic, so basically a sort of religious hermit, he realizes the deception, but the swindler has already fled. And there's one quite interesting little bit here about an alternate ending. So apparently, Andersen's manuscript was at the printers when he suddenly inspired to change the original climax of the tale from the emperor's subjects admiring his invisible clothes to that of the child's cry. There are many unconfirmed theories about why he made this change. Most scholars agree that from his earliest years in Copenhagen, Andersen presented himself to the Danish bourgeoisie as the naively precocious child, not usually admitted to the adult salon. The Emperor's New Clothes became his exposé of the hypocrisy and snobbery he found there when he finally gained admission. Andersen's decision to change the ending may have occurred after he read the manuscript tale to a child, or its inspiration may have been one of Andersen's own childhood incidents, which was similar to that in the tale. He once recalled standing in a crowd with his mother, waiting to see King Frederick VI, and when the king made his appearance, Andersen cried out, "Oh, he's nothing more than a human being." His mother then tried to silence him, saying, "Have you gone mad, child?" But whatever the reason, Andersen thought the change would prove more satirical. And one final note, which I think still sounds very relatable to this day, and that's the Emperor's New Clothes being used as an idiom. So the use of the story's title refers to something widely accepted as true or professed as being praiseworthy, due to an unwillingness of the general population to criticize it or be seen as going against popular opinion. The phrase, Emperor's New Clothes, has become an idiom about logical fallacies. And in this way, the story may be explained by pluralistic ignorance, which in social psychology is a situation in which a majority of group members privately reject a norm, but go along with it because they assume, incorrectly, that most others accept it. So the story is about a situation where no one believes, but everyone believes that everyone else believes. Or alternatively, everyone is ignorant to whether the emperor has clothes on or not, but believes that everyone else is not ignorant. I suppose sort of a sheep mentality in some ways. Or perhaps our vulnerabilities to peer pressure or pressure from those around us, and also that many of us are worried about looking silly or seeming different, which can in some cases be the silliest thing to do. So, a fun little story. I really hope you enjoyed it. Do look out for more stories from Hans Christian Andersen. I'm looking to narrate quite a few of them. I read The Last Dream of the Old Oak on a live stream just a few days ago, and then ran a poll on my community tab on YouTube asking which of Hans Christian Andersen's stories are your favourite. So, The Emperor's New Clothes has been leading the vote, and so here we have it. I really hope you enjoyed it, and there will be another one within the next few days. Perhaps you can figure out which it will be. So, thanks so much again for listening. You take care wherever you are, and I'll Read to you soon.